Hey everyone, this is Eric. This is my friend. We met online. We connected on real estate and everything, and then we were talking private lending, but we have a service academy background. I've been learning a lot with him the past couple months. But Eric, tell us a little bit more about your story. So you work with syndications a lot, jumped into private lending. Tell us a little bit more about your journey on how you ended up there, and would love to jump into this with you.
Sure. So got into real estate at the academy actually. My senior year they outlawed Airbnb, so that'd be the cool kid, buy a
Mm,
house, we could throw parties there.
yeah.
And it was great for all of about 3 weeks, and then COVID hit. And they kicked us all out, and so I had this house now that I didn't know what to do with. And the whole monthly mortgage thing was kind of starting to take its toll on me.
Mhm.
Ended up putting it on Airbnb, and as luck would have it, it worked out. My buddy's girlfriend in Annapolis was cleaning it, was renting it out every few weeks, and it ended up paying for beer money for me while I was living on the beach with my girlfriend at the time. And it
Right.
was a wild kind of eye-opening, like, hey, I made this mistake, didn't think about any of these things, but it worked out. So the COVID downtime gave me a little bit more time to kind of do the reading, the research, and look into real estate as more of an investment or whole life uh not policy strategy for
Mhm.
investing and supplemental income. And that kind of got me started. Did that for a few years, just single families. Ran out of money after the first couple of years.
Mhm.
Started doing rehabs and flips in the Midwest, where it's a little bit cheaper.
Cool.
And then as we relocated to Norfolk, that's where we primarily invest now, and started getting into multifamily. So buy, rehab, refinance some
Mhm.
multifamily buildings out in the Norfolk area where we're at. That's kind of the happy place we're at right now.
Sweet. I remember, we really connected on the greater why too. That's something that's really important to me. I mentioned what I do with the lining up with the jiu-jitsu communities and the autistic communities too. I remember something you said that stood out was you really want to work with, repairing the reefs. You do a lot of diving. You're a big surfer guy. So tell us all how that ties in together. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, so I uh, grew up in Hawaii, and did a lot of that volunteer work kind of on the side. My
Mhm.
mom was like, "Hey, this will look great on your resume," and
Sure.
sure, maybe it does. I don't know, but it was something that I was very passionate about. And kind of when I got to the point where I was, looking at college, looking at careers after, I realized I did not want to get, kind of funneled into the, hey, I wear a suit and I sit at a desk all day, and like that is my
Mhm.
life
Sure.
as an adult. And so, that kind of led to the Navy, and then in turn from there, the real estate, kind of building a financial platform that I can base a life on, where I have the freedom, the flexibility to do the things that I care about, that I give a shit about.
Mhm.
And so, it is time consuming, it is expensive, it is scary sometimes, but the real estate is a tool that gives me the freedom to have the time, have the resources to do some of the things that I am actually passionate about,
Mhm.
and kind of move past the, hey, I need my paycheck on the first and 15th, or whatever it may be, just to pay the bills, pay for groceries, all those sorts of things. And so the investing has just given me the ability to hopefully move back towards that, especially when I hope to go back to Hawaii here in the not too distant future, and be
Okay.
able to
Sweet.
kind of set that up as my life moving forward.
Sweet. Is that something that you really hunkered down and like figured out the moving pieces for how you're going to start that giving back process? Or is that something that's still like in motion? You're figuring out how you're going to do the estate planning side of things?
Um, Definitely still in motion for like the grand scheme, if you will.
Sure.
I still support the like small little Noah organization that I volunteered for back in the day, but obviously not the ideal way to affect any sort of change.
Hmm.
So it's something that's, nice to do now just because I can, but not like an ultimate, hey, this is, the extent of my passion for this. I'm just going to give some money to this organization and, good luck, Godspeed, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that when we do go back to Hawaii, then I have the time, the locale, the time, the resources to become a little more involved again.
Yeah, I found like the estate planning side, it's almost a whole different art, right? Let's like comparing this to like a martial art. So like maybe you have jujitsu and wrestling, that's like your real estate and insurance side of things, right? But then, estate planning is a whole other art. It's like going into striking, you think you know which way is up and which way is down, you know the general movements, but it could be a whole new can of worms. That's what I'm discovering as I'm jumping into it. And it's really cool too, because I really like it's like a massive ego check. It's like very similar to jujitsu too. You think you have wealth building figured out sometimes. You're like, okay, I got my feet underneath me, and then you learn something new and just have your mind blown. There's so many people operating on so many different crazy levels. I find it very, very interesting. And the stuff that I'm learning on the estate planning side of things is a perfect testament to that. Going back to our shared academy experience and everything. So you were at the Naval Academy. I was an Army guy. I'm always asked this question. When you were there and throughout your active journey, what was your experience on learning investing? So like we had a basic financial literacy course when we got our Cal loan or that career starter loan for you guys. And we had some basic, like we created a Roth IRA calculator, shit like that. But past that, there was really no depth unless if you went to a club. And then when I got out, I immediately went to battalion and like brigade commander, started to have some conversations there, like, hey man, I'm a new lieutenant, like tell me what the fuck to do. I don't know what to do. And general advice is typically, max out your TSP that we get in there. Continue to max your Roth is a typical advice that we get. And then, any excess capital put into bonds or a high yield savings account. That's what I followed for the longest time. But as you were going through, you mentioned you got into real estate while you were at the academy. So did you have some maybe internal or external mentors in there that helped shape that process? Tell me a little bit more about what you picked up there.
Okay. So I disclaimer up front, I think our education program or system, kind of high school, college, whatever level you're thinking at,
Mhm.
nationwide neglects the shit out of financial literacy and education.
Yeah.
There is no, you know, you go through calculus, physics, science, all the random, got to check these blocks, but nowhere do they teach you how to be an adult, how to take care of your money, how to, set yourself up for success, how to set up the next generation for success.
Hmm.
And that was my experience through high school and then at the academy.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything for my career starter loan. They literally, said, sign here, and we're going to send
Yeah.
this money to your bank account. And it
Wow.
showed, right? Like, second class year, everyone gets this loan, and the amount of, new cars, whether it's a truck or a sports car that just popped up.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. Some people took, fancy vacations, some people gambled, some people just dumped it all into one stock.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, you always got to have that one guy
uh,
that gambles it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And at the time, you're like, I also, this is more money than I've ever had by far. Like, what do I do with this? My choices were not very smart. I also bought a truck in cash, but they don't teach you what to do with it. They give this to you, and in theory, it's a great product, right?
Yeah.
Super low interest rate kind of gets you started, gives you the opportunity to experiment these things.
Mhm.
But there's no training wheels, no guidelines, no lane to stay within to help you use that. So I really didn't get any of that. It I honestly got lucky with COVID and having that downtime to do a little bit of research on my own. It's changed a little bit, I will say, not necessarily through the academy alone, but there's a few grads from like the 2010s, 2015 timeframe who have started putting together like biannual events for midshipmen. So, go back to Annapolis, rent out one of like the grad centers or something like that,
Yeah.
and bring together some speakers, some folks who have experience in education. For example, that's the first time I
Mhm.
heard about whole life insurance. My
Interesting.
brother's at the academy, so took him to this seminar, and Yeah, there were people speaking on all sorts of things. There was a West Point grad who had bought an apartment complex while he was there, so he talked about that. There was an Air Force guy who talked about whole life insurance. There were a couple of random folks who did various levels of syndication.
Mhm.
And so I think something like that is greatly beneficial for folks who are going through now. But it is not part of the standard curriculum. It is if you're on Facebook and you've heard of these folks, here's a
Yeah.
great opportunity for you. So it's not part of the package, the educational package that you were given.
I know we connected a lot on reading and everything too. So you had those seminars, you had those conferences that you went to, internal to the academy. What books did you jump into? Like, who was your main, book mentor, or what types of reading did you start to do that really helped you compound and learn?
Oh man. So I love reading.
Mhm.
I I mean, it's you learn someone else's $1 million lessons for nine
Yeah,
dollars
yeah,
and prime shipping, right? Like it's great.
yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
I started the super vanilla way, Bigger Pockets, Brandon Turner, like the
Yeah,
ABCs of real estate investing. Read through his few books.
yeah.
Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. Read through his series. Um, excuse me. Got into kind of a number of different books
Mhm.
that were not necessarily strictly real estate, but at that point, came from recommendations from some of the authors of these books. The one thing, Bluefish. What else we got? Find Your Why, Leaders Eat Last,
Mhm.
Ninja Selling, Think and Grow Rich,
Yeah,
7 Habits of Highly Successful People. There's kind of a standard, like if turn around and look at my bookshelf, I give you if you're getting started in business or you want to learn about investment, financial education, read these 10 books.
yeah.
Um, and don't get me wrong, there's no wrong answer. There's a ton of stuff out there.
Mhm.
But I kind of branched out from the like standard vanilla stuff that really got me hooked.
Mhm.
And that's honestly what I've been recommending to folks for the last few years. Not anything necessarily strictly real estate, but more things that kind of are focused on shifting your mindset to um, to viewing things differently, right? Not how I can't afford this, but how can I afford this? Kind of just the
Yeah,
the, the
yeah.
rich dad poor dad thing, right? Like find the asset to pay for the liability.
Mhm.
Vice. Here's your credit card. Let's go for it.
Yeah. It's everyone says that mindset is such a big player. I remember hearing about this like 5 to 6 years ago, and I thought it was bullshit. I thought, show me the Carfax, show me like the math moves, because that's what I wanted to learn, because in my brain like that equated to what was important. But I really found like if you're holding yourself back mentally, then the math doesn't even matter. Like if your mindset is wrong, if you're not thinking that you are worthy of this, or you're holding yourself back via limiting beliefs, et cetera, and your self-talk's not right, then the math's not never going to matter in the first place. You mentioned Think and Grow Rich. That's probably my favorite mindset book. It talks about the power of the subconscious. The analogy of the ant steering the elephant is a really, I think Ant and the Elephant is a book. It
Mhm.
talks how the conscious mind is the ant, and the subconscious mind is the elephant. And imagine an ant trying to steer an elephant. It's not going to work, right? But that's the power of our subconscious. We always try and like bootstrap our brain with our conscious mind, but it's really, I feel, the majority of the work is coming from the subconscious. Like, what is your self-talk like? What is your habits, how you speak to yourself? I found that much more beneficial.
100%. And there's, I mean, countless different things that people espouse as, hey, this is the way to do it. This is the way to do it. And I don't know if there's a right one. I mean, I dabble in a bunch of them. I have a vision board back there. I look at have the app on your phone and it scans through the pictures super fast, fractions of seconds, and it's like, hey, your subconscious will remember this. I have my
Yeah.
my jar of awesome where my daily like high points go into that.
Mhm.
I have morning journal, evening
Yeah.
thoughts. Like, hey, these are things you got to I'm thinking about this right before I go to bed. My subconscious is supposedly is working that problem overnight.
Yeah.
And not to sell mumbo jumbo or anything,
Mhm.
to each their own. But there are a ton of things out there. I can't say they work or they don't work, but I do think that we very much take for granted the brain, and misunderstand what the human brain and especially the subconscious is capable of. I
Mhm.
don't know if you've heard of a great book, by a guy named Jim Quick, called Limitless.
I'll write it down.
He as a child was diagnosed with a whole laundry list of basically learning disabilities.
Mhm.
And it's a little bit of the story of how he was able to kind of understand his brain better, and
Mhm.
some of the basically lessons that he goes around teaching today. It's all sorts of wild things that he has taught himself to do that the human brain is capable of doing, if you just understand it. And it
Amazing.
is truly impressive.
When you know, we have lots of overlaps. You mentioned a few of your routines that you do. I do those as well. And, from our backgrounds, we tend to be pretty hard drivers coming from service academies and whatnot. With all that you're doing, launching your business or, you have your businesses and all of the extra things that you do you ever find yourself like you're pushing too hard? That's something that I've struggled with a lot too. Like I get so, um, trap may be the wrong word, but so embedded in the routine, sometimes it's a little bit difficult for me to unplug, if you will, and kind of see what's going on. Like to tell you a story really quick. I was walking back. I had one of those days, up at 6, work straight into, all business handling, straight into jiu-jitsu practice. Wasn't done until like 7:38. And then I was walking back. Of course, I was able to unplug during practice, but then I just looked up at the sunset. I was like, damn, I spent my whole day just like completely plugged in, just not realizing how grateful I am just to like be and experience life. Do you struggle with that? Is that something you've worked through or kind of figured out, as you've been launching or building your businesses and everything?
100%. My, so I used to tell my wife, hey, we're gonna work real hard for 5 years, and that's all it's gonna take. I will,
Yeah.
set myself up and then sail off into the sunset. And
Sure.
5 years later, a reality hits. Hey, that's not exactly how that works, right?
Mhm.
And so I've kind of started trying at least to come to terms with, like, I would be perfectly content to, just put my head down and work, and that would kind of be my life. But that's not the life you're aiming for, obviously, right?
Mhm.
And so there's a book called Miracle Morning, by Hal Elrod. I don't know if you've ever heard
Mhm.
of it, but it is a great um, a great discussion on the mindset shift. And
Mhm.
it basically gives you, depending on how you set it up, a morning routine, anywhere from like 15 to 45 minutes. All it requires is getting up a little early, and that sort of thing. My morning routine, based off of the Miracle Morning, has kind of helped me shift my mindset to being grateful for the little things.
Mhm.
As it's stopping to smell the roses, sort of thing. And
Okay.
it's helped kind of ground me a little bit.
Yeah.
I've also so every Sunday night I do a weekly review and look ahead.
Okay.
And in that look ahead, I go through my planner, all the tasks, to do list, everything that I have for that next week, and I go through and I rank everything A to
Mhm.
E, basically based on the level of urgency, the priority, and the kind of like, if I don't do this, nobody else will.
Mhm.
So A is the this has to get done. If I don't do it, no one else will. This is time sensitive. There's money, whatever it may be.
Yep.
And so by doing that, it kind of helps me every day. I look at my plan. I get home from work. I'm like, all right, I have, one A and three B's and a C. So
Okay.
if, I sit down and I'm working until 8 and I get through the A, that's okay. Like I can,
Mhm.
the lower tier things will live, right? Like I will find a time to make it up. I will find another time to do it,
Yeah.
whatever it might be. And that's helped me, because before then it was very much like, I have to get everything done. Like I can't go to bed until
Mhm.
my planner is clear, my email is clear, all that, and it's never gonna happen. Like
Yeah.
keep getting emails, keep getting texts, and then you fire off a response to all these things, and then those fuckers email you back, right? Like it's a conversation. It's like you're never really gonna get there.
Mhm.
And so those things have sort of helped me come to terms with, hey, I got done the important things today, and
Yeah.
that's good enough for me, right? And then, I can take the time to go sit on my front porch, enjoy time with my wife, watch a show, whatever it is, to kind of unplug and wind down a little bit.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot too, going back to, military terms, prioritizing the next cube, and, having a left and right limit there to where, yes, there's sometimes there is critical tasks and you have to work to those critical task completion, but that doesn't mean you have to complete the whole to-do list. That's helped me a lot too. But I'm gonna check out Miracle Morning. I think that would be a good read. And I've also found that it's a continuous process. I don't think anyone has it figured out like 100%. I think it's a continuous thing that you have to go through and always improving. I don't think anyone has that 100% figured out, or maybe they do, but I'd love to have a conversation with them. I'll say that.
I would love to meet that person. I
Yeah,
read something, find something. I'm like, oh, this is the one. This is gonna solve it for me. Try it for a week. Try it for 2 weeks. It's like, oh, actually, I did. And some things stick, some things don't. But it's the
yeah,
constant kind of evolution of picking things up, making it yours, seeing if it works,
yeah.
and then either adapt or throw it away.
Yeah. Let's weave this back in and talk about how you are doing your syndications and everything. So you mentioned you started off with single families and everything. You've had some experience with some flips. When did the syndication slash private lending idea come to fruition? And tell me a little bit more about how you set that up.
Okay. So when I first got into this, I wrote out 5-year goals, and at one of the points it was like, I don't know, it was $1 million in net value, or 100. I like round numbers, which sounds kind of bad, but it
Sure.
was, million, 100,000, whatever it was. And it was, I basically realized, like, hey, I'm buying a single family home every few months. Like, it is going to take me forever to really get anywhere.
Yeah.
Um, you go to multifamily, it costs more, sure. But one closing, slightly longer, slightly more complicated, and I get 5 doors or 10
Mhm.
doors or 15 doors or whatever it is, right? Vice the one. And so it helps you scale. Maybe I found a place, it took me 30, 45 days to close, and I'm making $250 a month if it's
Mhm.
if it's occupied. Like, yes, winning. But
Mhm.
on the other hand, if I bought a 20 unit and I'm making $200, $150 a door, that's exponentially higher, right? And so that's kind of where I started making the shift from single family to multifamily. Um, Obviously, as I did that, I didn't come into massive inheritance, or find treasure or anything. I needed money somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's what kind of got me into the syndication side of things.
Sure.
It was, hey, you know, I I've been around the block a little bit on the real estate things, and I'm confident in this. I want to do this. I'm offering, like, I can do the work. I can find the deal. I can do the renovation. I put it all together and give you a package, and you put your money in. You get your money out quarterly. You get your money to refinance, whatever it is. This is it's better, in my opinion, better investment opportunity for you than the stock market. Wherever you would put your money,
Mhm.
if you want to make money, but you don't really have time or give a shit enough to be very actively involved in it.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of how I started pitching the syndication thing. Um, I met my business partner about a year and a half into that.
Mhm.
Ryan, that was point Brad,
Mhm.
and kind of took off for the two of us that way.
Yeah.
And we started the All Academy investment, um, and it's kind of turning into a, we never got this education, but this is a great thing that we have found, or that we love, and so trying to kind of share that with other folks who went to service academies, join the
Mhm.
Navy, have the opportunity to do something for themselves that they will appreciate 20, 30, 40 years down the road, that isn't just work in the Navy for 20 years, get a pension, retire.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the target audience that we tried to shift towards, just because that was where we came from, and we kind of understood where
Yeah.
those folks were coming from, what they were equipped with. and what they just didn't know. And so we started scaling that way.
When you explain private lending or syndication to someone, I'm sure you've had a lot of experience packaging this and framing it in a really particular way. A lot of people, like we talked about, just come from 401k, TSP, et cetera, et cetera. And, they know what all those different systems are. They know what a bond is. They know what, mutual funds are. They know what a high yield savings account is, but they may not have come across private lending or syndications. So when you explain that to someone for the first time, how do you package that so you communicate it very clearly at first go?
It really depends on the person,
Mm,
and their level of experience or interest in real estate investing outside of, like you said, kind of those standard things.
mhm,
But the way that I like to think about it is buying stocks, buying bonds, TSP, 401k, whatever it is. That's great, right? You click a few buttons and numbers move on the screen from one account to the other. Uh, and that's it. Like all you do is you sit there and you watch.
mhm,
Real estate is something like I can put my hands on. This is an asset that I can touch and I can affect. I
mhm.
can't do anything about inflation or the stock market or what some CEO says. Like
Yeah,
I'm riding the wave up or down. That's
yeah,
it. With real estate, it is different. I can put in the legwork, find the deal where I know I am buying this for pennies on the dollar. I
mhm,
know that I can go in and do this level of renovation and make sure, it's done to this quality, whatever it may be. And I know that I can create a product like that we can force value into it.
yeah,
Um, and the way that you can reach out and touch this. Like it is a physical asset I can see, I can affect change on, and I can push value into. And that level of control is very appealing to me, and to a lot of the folks who end up deciding that they want to invest in real estate with us, because it is very different than stocks.
yeah,
And to someone who comes in as an investor, a limited partner, or whatever it may be,
mhm,
they're not the ones, with the hammer and the drill. They're not the ones running their teams. They're not doing the work necessarily. Um, but as a group, we have that control and that effect on the properties that we buy.
Okay, that makes sense. When you structure things with the All Academy Fund, what is your general process for structuring those? You could set it up so many different ways. You could do a 1 year hold at X%. You could do mandatory, you're going to hold it for 5 years. What have you learned that's working best in terms of how you construct the syndication?
So right now, we I think we kind of found our sweet spot,
Hmm.
where we use short-term hard money lending, for about 70 to 75% of the purchase price and 90 to 95% of the renovation. So we
Okay.
basically take a high interest short-term loan with a lot of the expense paid for, right? So I'm bringing a lot less money to the table. It's typically between 6 to 12 months, and so we use this kind of short-term high expense loan to purchase property, do the renovation, and then flip that over into a longer term refi. So outside of like a whole life insurance company, that'll give
Mhm.
you a 30-year loan on a commercial property, you're usually looking at like 3 to 5 year balloon, 25 to 30 year AM period, which is
Mhm.
fine. That's the kind of long-term loan that you shift to. And so, we buy the property, you're on this high value or high interest loan for 6 to 12 months. I refinance it within that period, pay off the loan, I shoot that base investment back to investors. And then we've essentially forced equity into this property. So everyone's money comes back out and you're holding this property, you've got 25% down, you have it on a more long-term loan. And then at that point, you just operate the property, right? So,
Yep.
we know, hey, it's got a new roof, it's got a new parking lot, it's got new HVAC. We just redid the kitchens, the bathrooms, the floor. Like this is a more or less new building that we just purchased. We shifted it over to our management company, so stable long-term tenants. And then, we collect checks quarterly,
Mhm.
from the cash flow.
Amazing. Where No investment strategy is going to be 100% perfect, right? Whether you're doing multifamily, single family home, commercial, syndication, et cetera, nothing's going to be perfect. But, a lot of people have some bad experiences where maybe with one strategy, then they completely write it off. So tell me a little bit more about the risks that are inherent inside syndications and how do you structure things to help mitigate those risks?
Oh man. So I'm not sure if you're familiar, Brandon Turner, a big name in kind of real estate in general, in terms of real estate investing.
Mhm.
And I want to say about 3 weeks ago at this point, he dropped a lengthy post on Instagram, Facebook, one of the social medias, I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, and it was a lifting of the skirt. Hey, this deal that I bought 4 years ago, it was a great deal. I bragged about it on all my social medias. Well, we just lost $15 million, and that
Oh,
is
shit.
investors' money that is gone. That is not coming back.
Mm.
Um, the long and short of it, they used an adjustable rate mortgage, and so while they did execute along their business plan, they raised rents to market value. They increased greatly their output cash flow, but they're on a 5-year balloon, the way a standard commercial loan is, and their adjustable rate. So the rate that they got during COVID, that was 3%. That debt service is a whole lot different than when it jumped up to 7%, kind of where we're seeing now.
Yeah.
Um, and with the balloon coming up, they had to refinance. They needed to pay off the loan,
Mm.
um, and ended up eating $15 million. So that was kind of a very sobering thing to see,
Yeah.
because I know Brandon Turner. I can't post something on Instagram and 50 people instantly want to invest money with me, right? Like I'm a small time operator compared to the larger things that he's doing.
Yeah.
And so it kind of a humbling, like, hey, it can happen to anyone. Like you can really fuck this one up.
Mhm.
Um, and at the base level, to avoid these things, you focus on underwriting, you focus on the initial acquisition, you focus on management. Those are the big things. You make your money when you buy. Um, it's as easy as that. So when we were getting started, we were buying a couple buildings out here. We were paying 115, $120,000 a door. We didn't know better. Um, and I'm not gonna say that the deals failed, because they didn't fail. We're making money, but it
Mhm.
is a lot harder to push a refinance to cash flow as much as you would like on a deal you paid 115 per door for, versus the one we just pushed through was we bought at 75,000 a door, right?
Mm.
So you make your money when you buy. You really bake that profit in, knowing, seeing how low you can push it, knowing the ceiling where you can refinance or you can force the equity up to. Um, Managing the the kind of operations. So sticking to the timeline, ensuring contractors are in and out. We're not over budget. We're not over timeline. We're hitting the wickets. Also important.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, it comes down to management.
Mhm.
Can you consistently retain tenants, keep property turnover low, keep expenses low, keep maintenance? Like, can you take care of the property?
Yeah.
uh, Really, at the end of the day, you can do everything right, and if your property manager sucks, you're fucked.
Yeah. Mhm.
We stood up property management in-house at this point about 8 months ago.
Mhm.
Started our own property management company. Ryan, my
Okay.
business partner, runs that. And for example, quick difference. Um, the previous property manager, we went through a ton of ACs in one summer. It was hot. We were replacing them left and right. And at some
Mm.
point, I was like, I'm over this. I'm done paying for ACs. I'm calling my own people. We're going to figure this shit out. And a unit, they told me I needed to pay $5,000 to replace the AC. It turned out to be a $150 bill to replace the thermostat.
Huh.
And that was really eye opening. It was these people don't care about my property or my money the same way that I do. Like they are more
Mhm.
than happy to throw 5 grand at this problem, say, hey, fix the AC, tenant's happy, tenant stops complaining, I'm good to go. Right. But
Yeah.
that is not, I would never do that, right? Because it is my $5,000 going out of my pocket into this property manager's hands.
Mhm.
And so by shifting that to in-house property management, where people who are invested in these deals are the ones doing the management, right? We have in-house maintenance now. We have certified HVAC techs. Like we do this ourselves,
Yeah, a little more
and
control.
we're very much more cost minded, right? So I'm not saying we're trying to skimp tenants, right? But there's
Yeah,
big difference between just pulling the trigger and replacing an AC and troubleshooting it and realizing it's a thermostat.
yeah.
And that is where you make or break yourself.
That's a pretty nuts story, man. That's crazy. You mentioned, Brandon Turner posted that, saw a post that he put on a Bigger Pockets Everything, and it was very sobering to see. As you've run the All Academy Fund, did you have any events, maybe not of that magnitude come up, but did you have anything where you really had to, um, any like big problems that came up? And if they did, how'd you solve those problems when they came up?
So we have not, knock on wood, we have avoided those higher level issues.
Mm,
Um, we we've had smaller issues, right? Everyone does. First deal we did, I didn't know very much about underwriting,
mhm.
and I thought it was gonna be cheaper to renovate. So my ass went straight from work to the property, and I did the demo. I did the renovations after work, because we couldn't afford it. Because in my world of underwriting, I said, "Oh, it's only gonna cost us this much," and I didn't know. And so that was like, "Hey, I need to fix this now." We were under contract on the property, almost ended up buying it. But we reached out to the previous property manager just to talk through some of the issues she'd seen at the property, see if there was anything that we should know about. And unbeknownst to us at the time, and unrevealed by the sellers, the property was sinking. So
Mm.
built on the water, basically like huge telephone poles as support beams, dropping down about 30 feet. The repair, we found out, would cost about $400,000.
Oh, shit.
And the best part is when we called the structural engineers out to take a look at this, and the foundation guys, they came out, they showed up, and they said, "Oh, we've been to this property before. We were out here 2 months ago for the seller."
Mm.
And so, seller knew about issue. Seller did not say anything about $500,000 issue, and tried to push that off onto us, close, and walk away.
Oh, really?
And so we got lucky talking to the previous property manager. She mentioned that they'd had some settling issues, so we paid a little bit extra money to do the due diligence, take a look at the structure. Um, but somebody else bought it. Um, they paid more for it than they should have, and they are now selling it, incidentally, because it is sinking and they can't
Yeah,
afford the payment. So we fortunately dodged that bullet, but
yeah,
the folks who own it now did not.
yeah.
So we've gotten close. We have not, fortunately, been bitten by something that big yet, though.
Mm. Well, that's good. Very, very good. Let's transition and talk about the vehicle to do some of these syndications and private lending. And a good analogy that I like is make your vehicle match the path and terrain that you're going down, right? If you're trying to go off-road and you want to take a Prius, you'll probably take a truck. So I find that's pretty adjacent to the wealth building community too. You want to make sure that the vehicle that you're conducting, what you're doing is matching your intent. So when people come to you as an investor, are they using like self-directed IRAs? Are they playing arbitrage with whole life policies? What would you say is typical, and how are you personally doing syndications?
So I would say those answers are not the same,
Mm,
which is something that we have started trying to get after.
mm,
But again, I do real estate syndication. I am not
yeah,
a financial advisor. I cannot tell you with any certainty, hey, this is how you should do it.
yeah,
But the reality of it is a lot of the people who do this just do this, invest straight out of X savings account or brokerage
yeah,
account. Savings account not as big of a deal, right? Brokerage account typically a bigger deal because you're selling stock, you're incurring capital gains on whatever profit you may have made when you liquidate those funds to put into this. Um, so that's definitely not an ideal place to invest from. We have some folks who invest through self-directed IRAs. I invest some of my money through self-directed IRAs in our syndications. I also buy tax liens of a self-directed IRA. Great way to do things.
Yeah.
If you're expecting theoretically a windfall of money, and really want to avoid that capital gains tax. Um, I have had a couple of folks who have invested through whole life policies. That is another way that I do it. I would recommend either that or the self-directed IRA route.
Yeah.
Um, at the end of the day, real estate is a solid one to invest in, regardless of platform, because I can typically hide the money that you make
Mm.
legally within IRS guidelines, right? Um, when we just finished a refinance and we had put 600,000 into the property, us and our investors. We pulled out 800,000. So theoretically, that should be $200,000 in profit, capital gains tax rate 20-25%, depending on your timeline. That would hurt. But the way the IRS sees a refinance, it's, hey, I'm taking a larger loan, I'm taking on more debt. That is not profit. So
Mm.
so that refinance, all that money is tax free, right? So if you did just invest out of your savings account, if you did just invest out of brokerage account, you're not paying capital gains on that.
Yeah.
The money that we cash flow monthly based off of rental income back to investors, we can usually turn that into a paper loss due
Nice.
to expenses and depreciation of the property. Cost seg is typically a great way to kind of pull some of those expenses forward.
Yep.
Um, and so as a whole, it's not real estate is an advantageous way to invest your money and avoid some taxes. Now, that's not to say this is the ideal way to do it, right? Because you can supercharge or increase your profit if you do things in a different way, right? The
Hmm.
Roth IRA is a great way to do that. For example, that's how I do tax liens because there's always a chance that I spend $500 by the property tax and I get a $20,000 property off of it, right? That'd be a lot of
Yeah.
capital gains for a low asset or a low value asset. Um, when it comes to syndications, though, I do most of that personally through whole life insurance.
Okay.
Um, Easy way to think about it, right? And you obviously know much more about this than I do. I have my policy. I fund it. It's making 6.2% dividend. It only cost me I think 4.6% to take a loan. So if I rinse my money, I have this money, put it into the whole life policy. It's earning me 6%. I pull it out at 4%, invest that into a property. Well, that's an extra 2% that I just kind of added on top for myself, right? So anything that is being earned through real estate, add another 2% that I'm making on your arbitrage, right? Your difference between um, the dividend and the interest rate.
Yep. Yeah. You got
And
just
so,
lending money
so
to
that
make
is
money.
something I would definitely recommend.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah, it's lending money to make money, right? But just like a bank, if you deposit $1 million in the bank, they're going to give you less than 1%. They're going to sell that money via loan at, 10, 20, maybe even 15 or whatever percent back to keep the split between those two numbers. That's positive arbitrage. You could replicate that same process. Hypothetically, it doesn't matter where that capital comes from, but a great vehicle to use is a whole life policy because it's backed by those guarantees. We talked about taking leverage out of stock accounts that could end up very sketchy very, very quickly, right? An analogy that I like is it's kind of like building a house on a sand foundation or a sinking foundation, like we talked about earlier. If I take out, let's say, $100,000 from my 401k and we invade Iran next month or COVID 2.0 pops off, like that sucks really, really quick. But when you have those guarantees backing you in the whole life policy, it could be a good system to play that positive arbitrage game. But we connected on whole life and everything too. You mentioned that you're playing arbitrage with the policy. How else are you incorporating whole life into what you got going on in your general wealth building strategy?
So, my quick story. Great grandfather was a builder. He built a small company for himself, was very successful at what he did. When
Mhm.
he died, he left a trust. Um, and for like my parents, their siblings, whenever they went to buy their first house, they borrowed from the trust. So not exactly the whole same thing as a whole life policy, but very much like a family bank, essentially, if
Yep.
you will. And I kind of looking at that whole life is a way for me to kind of build one of those on my own, right? My
Yeah.
my goal at the end of the day, I don't want to deal with investors. I love the idea of sharing the information and the alternate, way to make money. But my goodness, is it a pain in the dick sometimes. So,
Yeah.
I would love to be at a place where I have my own bank, right? And so I'm doing
Yeah.
these deals because that's something I'm passionate about, right? Like I enjoy finding the deals. I enjoy doing the work, flipping the properties.
Mhm.
That's not something I want to stop, but I would love to. Ryan and I have talked about this kind of ad nauseum. Our goal is to be able to do it just ourselves, so we are
Mhm.
accountable to just ourselves. And so this is a very good way for me to start building these policies early, right? Because at the end of the day, it just takes freaking time.
Yeah.
But if I start now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I've started to accumulate that little nest egg, if you will, of borrow. This doesn't sound bad. Borrow against the bull money. I'm sure there's a better way to say that.
Yeah.
But basically, this pool that I can pull money out of, and so we can use that to purchase these properties, do the rehabs, and just run everything in house. So I will do the work to find it, to buy it, to renovate it, and then refinance it out to a mainstream bank. Call it a day, right? And so
Yeah.
so that flexibility that I could build just from that's the end all be all in
Yeah.
my personal wealth journey. Like that is what I want. I want the
Yeah.
ability and the freedom to do it myself, to do it in house. It takes 3 days when I make a withdraw or request a loan for my guardian policies. 3 days. Yeah, we can beat anybody out if I say, hey, I can close with you in a week, right? Because that's all it would take.
Yeah.
It gives you so much more power and leverage to do those sorts of things when it is all in-house that way.
Yeah, speed matters. And then, the mechanics on there too, when you're taking those non-direct recognition loans, your money is remaining intact in there and it continues to grow in a tax-free shelter. You're applying leverage via that cheap and flexible debt to go buy that asset while you continue to build your banking foundation and expand that system like we talked about. And then tying this into our graders wise too, we talked about legacy and helping out, for you, the Reefs, for me, it's the jiu-jitsu and disabled communities. We're all going to die. Newsflash, we're all going to die. And when you die, that death benefit is money you don't have to save up to in your real estate account or different government accounts, right? That is what life insurance is. You are given a death benefit. That death benefit could go into a trust and you could set the rules and regulations around that trust to help fulfill whatever your vision is. Maybe it's just protecting your family. Maybe it's something greater like me and you are doing. But what I found really interesting is you don't have to be the Rockefellers to do this. The Rockefellers started somewhere. You could do this on scale. It doesn't matter, how much capital you're starting with, but you could continue this cycle, which I find very freeing because going back to a little bit about my story, like I got really nihilistic when I was looking at, we talked about the education system, how things may be set up potentially on purpose, and financial education is not taught. That really drove me down a hole, and I got started to get nihilistic because I felt personally, ignorantly at the time, that I was not able to make any meaningful change. But this system is kind of it's a fight against that. I feel like you really can make a change. If you get yourself in order and you move to your friends and family, you could start to expand that circle outward in terms of who you can impact. And anyone can implement this system. It's just a matter of knowing, increasing your financial literacy and education so you could get to that point.
100%.
Mic drop.
It is a very no, it is a very, I don't know, a nice thing to I can start this ball rolling, right? I can be that
Yeah.
initial force that starts building the inertia, right? And that's frankly, if you think about it, hey, I built this. Well, someone doubles it.
Mhm.
My children, they take it from X to 2X or X squared, whatever it is, right? The progressive or even exponential growth that you see as you traverse generations. That's really cool, right? Like you can be the catalyst with
Yeah.
not a whole lot of time, not a lot of education, not a lot of money. You just need to go for it, and
Um,
you can do something that changes your family's life generations down the line, dramatically.
Yep, absolutely. Hey man, we're out of time. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. Really quick, tell us a little bit more about the Academy Fund. Tell us a little bit more about your socials if we got them. How can we get in contact with you?
Oh man, I have Instagram and Facebook. I am terrible at all social medias.
Mhm.
I'm a whole lot better in person or on the phone. My favorite way to do things.
Yeah,
Um,
a real human.
the real human, yes. I
Yeah.
do LinkedIn as well though. So
Okay.
just message and then some sort of phone call. Definitely the best way to do it. If anyone, I mean, interested in real estate, you don't need to, join my train. It's something I'm passionate about, something I love talking about, and would love to do that kind of with anyone who's looking to get started.
Well, so dude, hey, I appreciate your time so much. This was super fun, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Sounds good. Take care, man.